You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
All right, we got a lot to cover here with James Mennie today. James, I want to start, and we're going to have more on this at 5:30, with the big decision handed down today, the challenge to Bill 40 by the Quebec English School Boards Association, which turned out to be really good news, at least according to Joe Ortona, who we had on earlier today, who said this.
This is as big a win as we could have hoped for.
Can't say anything more than that, Jim. I think that sums it up pretty well. What did you make of this?
Well, what I make of it is, and I was listening to your interview with Mr. Ortona, and quite frankly, this is beyond being an embarrassing defeat for the Legault government. It also points out a rather uncomfortable truth that, quite frankly, all Quebecers are going to have to face. For the past 5 years, this government has done nothing but, for the most part, spew out garbage legislation that has been aimed at particular demographics in their own support circle, okay? Bill 21 appealed to the Islamophobes. Bill 96 appeals to the Anglophobes. And the funny thing is, Bill 40, which was one of the first pieces of legislation they adopted, was, if you may recall the rationale for this. When he was in opposition, François Legault was saying, it's ridiculous, we're spending millions of dollars on school board elections, and nobody's showing up. And that was the rationale for eliminating school boards. The idea was, we're going to save you, the taxpayer, money because of this completely expensive democratic process. And so, almost, I guess, without a murmur, Francophone parents shrugged and said, okay. However, for Anglophone parents and Anglophone school boards who have some understanding that we still live in Canada, that we're still subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights, and one of those rights is for minority, official language minority populations to administer their own schools, is a part of this country's highest laws. That didn't, and the amazing thing, as far as I can tell, is they didn't think back when they were, writing Bill 40 on a cocktail napkin in the National Assembly lounge that they should invoke the notwithstanding clause. And frankly, I don't think they're able to in this particular instance. But here we go again. Rubbish legislation, illegal legislation being shot down in the courts. Will the government turn around and appeal this? Very likely, because François Legault never likes to admit he's wrong. In fact, he likes to double down. So between now and, say, Labor Day, you can expect to see the usual suspects with picture bylines over at Quebec saying as how this is an insidious plot, another reason to take Quebec out of Canada, que les Anglais are able to do this, but the Francophones can't, even though it was a Francophone government that killed French language school boards in the first place. It's ridiculous. It shows just how silly and how poorly thought out any of this government's policies have been. And the only good news that François Legault got today is that it's August 2nd. There will be an explosion of coverage, although it's happening as well on a very, very busy news day. But down the road, it is going to come back to haunt this government. But as I say, this is what happens when you base legislation, when you base how you're going to govern people's lives in Quebec by determining, what the latest internal poll suggests, or God help us, what people are saying on talk radio shows.
So, Jim, what do they do now? Do they double down and appeal the decision,
Absolutely.
Or do they say nothing and hope it goes away?
No. They're going to double down and appeal it. C'est les Anglais, Seigneur. They're going to have their own school boards, and the Francophones can't. That's completely unfair. Francophones are the majority in Quebec. So, whatever we do, everyone else has to do. And this is what's addressed in the judgment that was handed down today. The judge is basically saying, no, this is in the Constitution to prevent minorities from being subject to the tyranny of the majority, which is exactly, tyranny of the majority. That should be on the license plates the CAC puts out, because that's exactly what's been going on here. And even then, we all know the people who support the CAC government do not at all represent the majority of Quebecers, and certainly none of them who are living in major urban centers that make this province go. So, bottom line, bad news for François Legault. Bill 40 gets a failing grade in Superior Court, but the story's not over. And I guarantee you as well, as they're allegedly studying this judgment, they're going to find some way to spin this to make it look like some evil plot to keep Quebec back, even though there's lots of other bad news for Quebec that came out today. But they'll try and focus on this as saying, c'est eux autres encore, les Anglais, qui compliquent la vie, qui coûtent l'argent, puis, and that'll be it. This is how this government operates, because God knows it doesn't know how to type up a law.
So let's go ahead and say that you're right. They do decide to appeal, although I'd like to live in my dream world, suggesting maybe this time they'll just cave and say, okay, we'll let it go. I realize that's not likely to happen. Where does this end up?
Supreme Court.
And that does the federal government get involved at that point?
Based on their past performance, I think the federal government will find new ways to hide under its desk until this goes away. Remember, there will be an election held between now and 2025. Quebec will play a crucial role in determining the outcome of that election, especially if there's going to be a Liberal government, even one that's a minority. And right now, in the rest of the country, poll after poll is showing us that the Trudeau Liberals are not doing very well. So no, don't expect any major boat rocking from the federal government in Ottawa on this particular issue.
Okay, can we go to the other story that we talked about only because we have to?
Yes.
And that, of course, is the announcement earlier today. Justin Trudeau, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau separating after 18 years. Look, ultimately, we all know there's going to be political spin here. So what's your take so far on what you have heard, or have you heard anything?
Well, listen, you're talking to a guy who, 7 years ago, when Pierre-Carl Pelado announced he was leaving politics because his marriage was breaking up, he had personal problems and whatever, I wrote a column and said, you know what, it's personal, therefore I will no longer be writing about Pierre-Carl Pelado. And I feel so grandmotherly today, remembering that I actually wrote that. Of course, this is going to be a political story. Mm-hmm. And you know what, it won't be in the guts of the copy, even though I'm sure that there are some outlets out there that are going to try and push the envelope just a little bit, because Trudeau has always equaled clicks, okay? But it's going to be more when they say don't read the comments. Read the comments, and you're going to see. And I heard you guys talking earlier about all the rumors that have dogged this marriage for years. Those rumors have always been out there. Will they get a little bit louder between now and the end of the week? Absolutely. Will a political adversary make any comment on it? Absolutely not. But that said, they know they don't have to. We live in a world where rumors now are being perpetuated much longer than any demonstrable truth, simply because of the internet, and that's what's going to happen here. Does Justin Trudeau owe an explanation other than what he provided today? I don't think so. But on the other hand, and I'm not saying this to defend any rubbish that's going to happen down the road, guys, but the thing about Justin Trudeau is it is impossible to be indifferent to him. You either love Justin Trudeau or you loathe Justin Trudeau. And you're going to see that divide exhibited, I believe, over the next few days and weeks in the wake of this particular story. There's plenty of other things he'll be targeted for as well, but this will just be another bale of sewage into the open-air sewer that has become Canadian politics.
Can I just ask, because it's something we, again, brought up when we were discussing this earlier, the idea, and I think a texter brought it up, a couple of people actually did, the idea of making this announcement openly, publicly today, instead of just letting this kind of fade and then at the right time, I don't know, after an election, after he decides what his future is going to be, announce it then. Why?
Well, in that regard, rip the Band-Aid off. If you sit on this, you know it's going to get out, especially if you sit on it for electoral reasons. Then it won't even be a matter of do we say something or not. There would be so much opprobrium from all sides of the political spectrum if you're actually using your personal life or you're putting down a very painful separation. Because I don't know the backstory on this. But if you did that, if you sat on that for political gain and that got out, it would be infinitely worse than anything that's going to be written or said over the next few days concerning their separation.
Okay.
Right, like these rumors have been swirling for years and years, and I think maybe it had reached a point where it was going to be seen like that his marriage was a sham and that he was putting on a facade for public. Again, we're speculating, but you the best way to stop the speculating is to say, the marriage is over. Let's announce it.
Yep, that's how you kill the story.
Hey, Jim.
You know what I mean? At least the official story, the actual coverage. That is a perfect strategy. Was something going to break? You know what? As bad as things have become in our business, I don't think they've become that bad. If someone's going to write a story criticizing Trudeau politically based on his marital status. But all that said, these days anything is possible. But I think the bottom line was, let's get this out in the open. Let's clear the air. And I like to think they're thinking about the kids too. So in the end, I kind of think that's what happens. And I can only hope that the damage, and there will be damage, will be as slight as possible, if only because I like to think there's some remnants, some scraps of civilized conduct left in my profession.
Jim, we're going to wrap up. I want to ask you real quick. Day 3, the Ram, we had a problem this morning getting out of the gate, but nothing so far. Did you hear the story, the guy who ended up with his wife in the garage?
Isn't that great?
Oh, my God. He was great. He was laughing about it.
Yeah.
They're lucky it was him.
He was a good sport.
It's like a bad science fiction film where the system becomes self-aware. And it's like, no, take me to Nuns Island. I can't do that, Dave.
Oh,
it's
no.
It's that kind of a situation. Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
And I mean this with all due respect and love, Aaron. Dvorak is a planet in the Crab Nebula.
Okay.
Dvorak is the...
Now, hold on a sec,
so,
Jim. This came up from a listener when I said it, Natasha.
No, I went to correct. I was almost going to correct him because I've always heard it pronounced as Dvorak. And then I thought I better check it online just to see. So that has been the common accepted pronunciation. But evidently, if you're doing it correctly, it's actually Dvorak. Like there's more of a Z hard sound.
So there, Jim.
Dvorak.
Yeah? Well, maybe it's just the aliens from the Crab Nebula.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That around.
It could have been worse. It could have been Beethoven. Jim, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have
a good one.